What's up, everybody? Today we are reviewing the 2023 Chevy Malibu LT1. So this is of course the 9th generation Malibu, and since now it's been discontinued. So basically they are no longer shifting their focus to internal combustion engine cars. They're completely getting rid of their sedans and obviously looking for an electric vehicle future, at least as of right now. I feel like they'll end up bringing back this Chevy Malibu, but with that being said, at this very moment, this is the last and final generation of the car. The exterior of this car features the mosaic black metallic color, some chrome detailing, basically the same looks as it was new in 2016. And honestly, the design of this car reminds me a lot of the 2012 Hyundai Sonata I owned, which of course was also black with chrome detailing. We have these 17-inch 10-spoke rims, which are part of the 1LT package, and along with that package comes heated front seats and dual climate control, along with LED running lights. As far as powertrain in this car, we have a 1.5-liter turbo 4-cylinder, which makes 163 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque, front-wheel drive, and of course we are paired to a CVT. So, as you all know, I absolutely love CVTs, but we'll see how this one stacks up to others that I've reviewed in the field, so such as, the Nissan products or that of Subaru. Alright, sitting behind myself at 5'9", I have tons of room in this car. You're not compromised as far as headroom. I still have about 3 inches above me. And legroom, I have plenty. I could stretch out and really get comfortable on long road trips in this car. And then as far as the trunk, we have plenty of room. Probably fit about 3 or 4 suitcases back here, no problem. And these seats are rear folding, so you can get stuff into the trunk, such as a ladder, into the cabin as well. So pretty nice setup for a sedan. Before we get started with our road test, I'll mention that we have wireless Apple CarPlay. I currently just have the screen off to, kind of pay attention to the road and not distract you guys with my Apple CarPlay. And we also have automatic headlights in here, daytime running lights, of course. We have a starter right on the key fob, which is great. I've used it a couple times since it's really cold here. And I'm so used to it in my Mach-E that, I can't go without it now. The dual climate control works great. Infotainment screen is a little laggy, including this backup camera, which is fairly high resolution, but just not really up to modern standards. Like as I turn the wheel, it's a little laggy. But, mostly this feels like a 10-year-old's car because it is. Whew. So as you can see, it's quite a rainy day up here in New Hampshire today. And, I am very appreciative that it's not snow, but it is still fairly cold at just above 40 degrees. But I think we're almost out of it as far as, winter. I think we're heading towards spring and it'll be here soon, which I look forward to. So now that we're on the road, I first wanted to talk about these interior impressions. So getting into this Malibu, we have cloth seats in here that they do have power adjustments, and you get a nice comfy driver's position. The seat doesn't really hold you whatsoever, so don't expect to do any sporty driving in here. But they are kind of comfy like a couch. They feel like your grandfather's armchair in a lot of ways. But they do have heated functions as well, so fairly good as far as overall comfort in here. We have plenty of room up in the driver's seat as well, and even if I push my seat all the way back, the people behind me will be fine. I do wish this interior had a sunroof. I think that would add to the characteristics of the car a lot, kind of provide a more luxurious interior, especially because if you get a panoramic sunroof with the little shade up front, the little windscreen, it's a good time. I mean, that's what my Hyundai Sonata had, and I really loved that sunroof. Overall, the materials in here aren't great. I mean, we do have physical buttons for everything, and most of them feel nice, and you know, the dual climate control works great. I like that when you do adjust a setting, it shows up on your screen here. But I do appreciate that they didn't do gloss black down here. I think that would have gathered dust and dirt really easily and look pretty bad, especially since the cup holders are integrated into this section right next to the shifter. I will say, if you have a larger cup such as like a Stanley or something in here, you're gonna have a hard time fitting it next to this shifter. Luckily, I only have my 16-ounce cup here, so I don't really have that issue. But I'm also really confused as to why they did this large traction control off button. Why is it so big? Couldn't we have fit something else there instead of just the traction control button? But oh well, you know, I won't gripe too much about that. As far as the steering wheel, it's very low quality. It kind of feels like a Fisher-Price toy in a lot of ways. It's this hard plastic, and it has this weird perforated, softer plastic on the inside of the wheel, and in between that is a dividing line that runs through the front and the back of the steering wheel. And when you put your hands on it, which, you know, when you're gripping the wheel, you're going to have your fingertips right on it. It's actually really bothersome. I don't like it whatsoever. You know, I think manufacturers need to pay closer attention to who designs their wheel and what they do with it, because a wheel makes or breaks an interior, people. You need high quality materials. We could have leather wrapped this. I mean, you know, these Malibus start in the mid-20s, but this one with the 1LT package is $28,000 brand new. And for that money, you expect to get higher materials, especially on your steering wheel. My Elantra N-Line, which I bought brand new for $23,000, had a leather-wrapped steering wheel, leather-wrapped shifter, and the places where I touched the most were of high quality, whereas they kind of cheaped out on the back seats or on the door cards, which was fine. So the CVT is definitely a dog, right? Like, if you're trying to hard accelerate in this car, you're not gonna have a fun time. Though I will say it makes it fairly fuel efficient, and when you're just kind of meddling around town, you don't notice it at all because obviously it's not shifting, it's just a one speed, and it's fairly smooth for that application. We do have auto start stop function in here, but you have a physical button to turn it off, so it gives it a pass there. You do have to turn it off every time you get in the car, so that might be annoying to some drivers, but I don't really see a problem with that. So the design characteristics, as I said before, remind me a lot of the Hyundai Sonata that I owned, which was a 2012 model. And not necessarily that it's a bad thing. I do think this exterior-wise is a nice looking sedan, but they really should have changed it over the years. Maybe it would have sold better. A lot of car companies go through model designations and change things every, 4 or 5 years, whereas Chevy and even, Dodge has really kind of stuck with a model design for a long time. And this specific Malibu, for instance, has not gotten a facelift in that 9 years that it's been out. So no wonder why people aren't buying them, because, you almost can compare it to the 2016 one you put out that long ago, right? Nobody wants to buy a brand new car and then someone come up to them and go, is that pre-owned? So I think that's really where the sales have declined on these. And then as far as interior design, I think they could have done better. Like, we have some nice material here. It's kind of like a cloth. They didn't want to do a full hard plastic dashboard, which I do appreciate, but you could have saved on materials here and maybe done something better with the steering wheel, because this is what people are touching. I'm not going to sit here and hold my dashboard for the duration of the drive. Although I don't like big crowned interiors where this part kind of sticks out here, I do appreciate the placement of the screen. I do wish it was facing me a little more instead of giving a direct access to both me and my front passenger here. Just make sure that person isn't touching your stereo stations, right? But it's a nice high quality screen and it mostly works fairly well. It does have a little bit of lag, as I said before, especially when it comes to the backup camera. The gauge cluster is pretty standard and nothing to write home about. We have a little screen in the middle here where we can navigate some vehicle information and other settings. One thing that is kind of useless is this eco index. I mean, it shows our current miles per gallon and our average. Average is 32 right now, which is really great, especially because, you know, I do tend to push this car a little bit since I've had it. And then of course we have our trip and our current fuel range. Tachometer and speedometer, of course, analog, which I do like. And yeah, I mean, it's not really a gauge cluster to, you know, freak out about. It's not going to be a selling point for the car, but you're not going to hate it either. And the last note I will say about the steering wheel is I wish it had volume control and skip track on here. I don't know about you guys, but I tend to use that so much in my cars, and although I do appreciate that you can navigate that little gauge cluster screen here, maybe if they took away like the text, the voice commands button, or put the call button somewhere else on the steering wheel, like we have this blank one here, like, I don't know, they could have configured this a little better where I have volume control and skip track. Not a hard thing to ask for. As far as ride quality, it's fairly quiet in here. Decent amount of sound deadening, especially for a sub $30,000 car, and that way I do feel like you'd get your money's worth. As far as steering, it's also pretty light. You do get a feel of the road and where your tires are, but still not great steering. But I think part of that comes with the soft suspension setup paired to the front wheel drive. Kind of just feels like you're driving a boat in a lot of ways. But around turns, I feel like this car, you know, holds itself together pretty well. It doesn't feel like a very large car when you're going down some side roads, but you do definitely feel the size when you're parking it, because you get out and you're like, oh, I'm close on both sides in my sedan, which is quite surprising to some people. But to conclude my thoughts on this 2023 Chevy Malibu 1LT, I feel like the exterior, although it's very old at this point, being a car that was designed in 2016, it still looks good, and I think most people would agree with that. As far as the interior, I feel like a lot of this is dated. Besides this screen and some of the nice features in here, it does really feel like I'm driving my 2012 Sonata all over again, which is not a good thing. It was a comfy car, but I mean, come on, that car is 13 years old now. With that being said, if you're going to consider one of these Chevy Malibus, and of course they're discontinuing this model, but if you're looking for one in the 2020s and above, you know, you're basically going to listen to everything I say here and go, okay, yeah, that tracks. But if you are shopping one of these, you definitely have to consider, you know, Honda Accords are better cars than this. The Hyundai Sonata, which I haven't driven a brand new one, they're very nice looking, and I know that they have lovely interiors. So if you're gonna shop one of these, definitely look at all your options, drive some of the competitors. I guarantee this is not a class-leading car, although it is still fairly nice. But with that being said, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you all next time on Auto Joe. Bye-bye.